Now while you're watching this video, please remember to like, subscribe to my channel, click the bell icon for notification of future videos, and share this video also. Thank you.
Flesh out much more the three strongest anti-Sabbatarian passages that I see in the New Testament: Colossians 2, Galatians, and Romans 14. As a matter of fact, my whole book is on Romans 14, responding to Adventism on it, and I connect that with Colossians 2 when I go into a lot of details and to show how these passages make Sabbath keeping non-obligatory and of personal conviction.
Hello there, welcome back to my channel. Now today, as the title suggests, CRG, the New Testament greatest ammunition against Christians keeping the Sabbath, right? Or as you would have seen the clip that I just showed just now, as it says, the three strongest anti-Sabbatarian texts in the New Testament. Now there is a twin video to this, right, which I did. Let me tell you when was the date that I did that that video. I did that video December 5, 2020, right? It's called the CRG, the New Testament's greatest ammunition against Christians keeping the 10 Commandments. Now this is a twin version of that. There's another, just as there's a CRG with the 10 Commandments, there's also a CRG with the Sabbath, right? And you would have seen in the clip that I just showed you, Colossians, Romans, and Galatians. So where the twin version that speaks about the 10 Commandments, CRG and the 10 Commandments, you have Corinthians, 2 Corinthians chapter 3, so the C stands for Corinthians, the R stands for Romans, which is Romans 7, and the G stands for Galatians, which is Galatians 4. That's a twin version. Now in this one, the Sabbath, right, you have Colossians chapter 2, you have Romans chapter 14, and you have Galatians chapter 4 also, right? Those are the three strongest anti-Sabbatarian texts in the New Testament. Now, when I did the twin version and the 10 Commandments, I thought to myself, Kismar, isn't there a CRG for the Sabbath too? And immediately when the thought came to my mind, I said, yes, you have Colossians, you have Romans, and you have Galatians. And then I was remembering that this was something said by the speaker there in the video, the clip that I show you. His name is LC Thunder Lariston. I remember that he mentioned something like that in his debate with the late Ian Boyne, right? So I said to myself, why not do a video on the Sabbath using those three texts also, right? So that is where this video actually is coming from. You understand? Doing the twin version, remembering about what LC said in his video, and then I say, yes, I can do a video on that one too. Right, and so thus I am making this video now. Now what I want to say, right, is that my previous video on the law, which is titled Understanding the Jerusalem Council in Acts chapter 15, right? This was one of the arguments that LC brought out in that clip that I showed you on his debate with the late Ian Boyne, that no Jew, you understand, could push themselves on the law without first being circumcised, right? And I went back and studied the whole Acts chapter 15 for myself, having heard, remembering what Elsie said, and saying, well, you know, that's a really great argument against the law. And when I studied, I was immediately taken to Galatians chapter 5, right, where Paul is saying, if you circumcise, you're indebted to do the whole law. You understand? And then saying Christ is become of no effect unto you if you're justified by the law, showing you that circumcision is not important anymore, and without circumcision the law cannot have any effect. You understand? The law then cannot be in effect without circumcision. So once circumcision is ruled out, the law itself, the entire law of Moses, should be ruled out as well. You understand? And remember I saying that the law of Moses comprises both what you call ritual and what you call moral. Not as what Sabbatarians would say, that the law of Moses is the ritual laws and those other things and so forth. I prove that over and over again in my video, or in videos should say, right? And having made that video, Acts 15 and the Jerusalem Council, you would say to yourself, Kisma, I have no more need, you understand, to put out any video talking about the law or the Sabbath and so forth, right? Nah, I'm not going to end it here. Why? Because persons whose eyes are still blinded in the reading of Moses, as what is said in 2 Corinthians chapter 3, they are still going to find other little arguments to try to cancel out, you understand, what is being said in Acts chapter 15. And so as a result of that, Kismar, the host of All Things Religious, is going to see this thing through. I intend to deal with every single argument against, you understand, an anti-Sabbatarian view. I intend to show every argument there is that shows that Christians no longer need to keep Sabbath or observe dietary rules and the like. You understand? Even though Acts chapter 15 should have settled everything, I'm still not nowhere finished as yet. You understand? Now, that being said, this video is only going to be a basically a summary. I'm going to individually look at Colossians 2, Romans chapter 14, and also look at Galatians chapter 4. I'm going to look at them individually. But what I'm going to do is basically scratch the surface of each of them just for this video, right? Now, with that being said, let us have a short word of prayer before we get into this discussion. Let us pray. Most kind and compassionate Father, as you are about to open the word yet again, I pray, Lord, that you will illuminate the minds of those who will be seeing this video. Open their hearts to receive the message that will be given to them today, and may they be able to apply it to their lives. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Now, we are going to look at Colossians chapter 2 first. Right? Now, I'm going to read from verse 8, and I'll stop at verse, I'm going to read at verse 8, and I'll stop at verse 17, right? Verse 8 to verse 17. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, and after the rudiments or the elements of the world, and not after Christ. For, given his reason, in him dwelleth all the fullness of the Godhead bodily, and you are complete in him, which is the head of all principality and power, in whom also you are circumcised with the circumcision made without hands. Did you get that? This is further showing you that the physical circumcision is not anymore applicable, because we have been circumcised with the circumcision made without hands, in putting off of the body of the sins of the flesh by the circumcision of Christ. And in verse 12 he tells you how. Buried with him in baptism. This is how you know you have been circumcised without hands. You've been buried with him in baptism, wherein also you are risen with him through the faith of the operation of God, who hath raised him from the dead. And you, now being dead in your sins and the uncircumcision of your flesh, hath he quickened or given life together with him, having forgiven you all your trespasses. Next, verse 14, blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way, nailing it to his cross. Right? And having spoiled principalities and powers, he made a show of them openly, triumphing over them in it. Let no man therefore, this is the cause, you know. So Paul is saying, you know, because Jesus have done this, you understand, blot out the ordinances of things that was contrary to us, taking it out of the way, nailing it to his cross, and has now given you life. He has now given you life, you know, according to verse 12, because you have been buried with him and risen with him through the operation of God. right? He has quickened you together with him in verse 13. And he has blotted out the things, the ordinances that was against you, that was contrary to you. You understand? So therefore, it is saying that these things was contrary to you. But because of what Jesus did, no one should then judge you. You understand? In meat, that is verse 16, or in drink, meat or food, right? Or in drink, or in respect, or in part of a holy day, or of the new moon, or of the Sabbath days, right? In verse 17, he tells why. They are a shadow of things to come, but the body or the substance is of Christ. You understand? I hope you get that, you know. Nobody should judge you, you understand, to pass any sentence against you where Sabbath keeping is concerned, where Sabbath days is concerned, where the food and drink is concerned. You understand? Any form of holidays, where any form of holiday is concerned, right? Or of any new moon celebration or of Sabbath days, because those are shadows of the body which is Christ. You know, if you walk on a road in the night, you know, and there's a reflection of the light, you understand? I love to use that example because we know it all too well. And you see someone approaching, you see the shadow, you know, your eyes is going to be stared at the shadow. But once you see the physical person, you're not going to look at the shadow anymore, because you're going to be, oh, hey, what's up, girl? Walk on, my friend. You did I come down the road, then I never realized you know, me see the shadow coming, but I never realized that it was you. Let me translate that. I see the shadow coming, but I didn't know that it was you. So once the person arrives, you're not going to look at the shadow anymore. So because Jesus was manifested in the flesh, these shadows become of no more a necessity. They are no more essential. They become non-essential then, so to speak. You understand? Now the question is this. If this is talking the weekly Sabbath, why the fuss about keeping the Sabbath? Why the fuss? Why pressuring Christians, telling them that they must keep the Sabbath? If that's the Sabbath that is being spoken of there, you know, then no one should try to pressure or to force any Christian to observe Sabbath. They shouldn't try to force any Christian to observe the new moon or any holy day. They shouldn't try to judge them on the things that they eat or the things that they drink either. You understand? So this is a very strong argument. If I can successfully prove that is the Sabbath spoken of here, then Sabbatarians have no grounds whatsoever to say that Christians must observe the Sabbath. Now, I'm not going to look at the arguments as to why they say that it's not the Sabbath spoken of there. You understand? What I'm going to do, as I've said before, I'm going to do an individual video on it. So that being said, let us look at Romans chapter 14. Romans chapter 14 says thus. Romans 14 says thus. I'm going to start from verse 1. Him that is weak in the faith receive he, but not to doubtful disputations. For one believes that he may eat all things, but another who is weak eateth herbs. Let not him that eateth despise him that eateth not, and let not him which eateth not judge him that eateth, for God received him. God hath received him. Who art thou that judgest another man's servant? To his own master he standeth or falleth. Yea, he shall be holding up, for God is able to make him stand. One man esteemeth one day above another, another esteemeth every day alike. Let every man be fully persuaded in his mind. He that regardeth the day, he regardeth it unto the Lord, and he that regardeth not the day, to the Lord he doth not regard it. He that eateth to the Lord, he that eateth to the Lord, for he giveth God thanks. And he that eateth not, to the Lord he eateth not, and he giveth God thanks. Right? Now, what this is saying, you know, Paul is saying, you know, if the minute Paul is going to say, let everyone be fully convinced in his mind, right? Whether he should observe this day, or observe that day, or consider every day alike. Now, the fact of the matter is, the minute Paul says each person should be convinced or persuaded in his own mind, he is essentially saying that it's irrelevant whether you want to choose this day or observe that day, or if you say every day alike, it's irrelevant. Paul would never say, let whosoever believe that he can commit adultery, and who that believes that he can't be fully persuaded in his own mind. He wouldn't say, let him that thinketh he can kill, and him that thinketh he cannot kill be fully persuaded in his own mind. Paul says that. The New Testament lets us know specifically clear. You are not left to be persuaded or be convinced in your own mind whether you should kill, or whether you should steal, or whether you should commit adultery. The Bible tells you point blank. I don't even need to point a scripture to you, because you know that you shouldn't steal and you shouldn't kill. You know that you ought not to do any of these things. And it tells you that clearly. It doesn't tell you to be convinced in your own mind. So the fact that once Paul is saying that you are left to become persuaded with your own mind, it means it's your own choice to do it or to not do it. Observe it or not observe it, it is your choice. Now, if I can prove that the day is spoken of there, 1 minute steaming one day above another, that Paul is implicitly alluding to the Sabbath, then just like Colossians, Sabbatarians have no ground whatsoever, you understand, to be pressuring Christians to keep the Sabbath. You understand? Paul says it explicitly, you know. Colossians 2 is an explicit text, you know, against the Sabbath, you know, for it did say Sabbath days. You understand? But they won't accept that, right? In Romans, he tells us implicitly, it implicitly alludes to the Sabbath. You understand? It is left for us now to prove that it's the Sabbath day. Paul is alluding to here as well. Now I'm going to go to Galatians chapter 4. Let's look at the third anti-Sabbatarian argument, right? Galatians chapter 4. Let me see, where should I start from? As a matter of fact, I'm going to read from verse 1. I'm going to read from verse 1, Galatians 4, verse 1, and I'll stop at verse 11. Now what I want to do is that I'm going to read this from a different translation here, right? I think it will bring out the point a lot better for you to read from a different translation. Galatians chapter 4, starting from verse 1. And I think I'm going to read from the NASB. Right? Now I say, as long as the heir is a child, he does not differ at all from a slave, although he is the owner of everything. But he is under guardians and managers until the date set by the father. Right? So also we, while we were children, we were held bondage under the elemental things of the world. Right? But when the fullness of time came, God sent forth his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, so that he might redeem those who were under the law, that we might receive the adoptions of sons. Now because you are sons, God hath sent forth the Spirit of his Son into our hearts, crying, Abba, Father. Therefore you are no longer a slave, but a son. And if a son, then an heir through God. However, at that time when you did not know God, you were slaves to those which by nature are no gods. But know that you have come to know God, or rather to be known by God, how is it that you turn back again to the weak and worthless elemental things, to which you desire to be enslaved all over again? You observe days and months and seasons and years. I fear for you that perhaps I have labored over you in vain. Right? NLT says, I fear for you, perhaps all my hard work with you was for nothing. You understand? So that is the NLT version, you know, my hard work. Paul is saying, I fear for you, perhaps all my hard work for you was for nothing. What is Paul actually saying there when he says that perhaps his all work for you was for nothing? What exactly is Paul saying there? In a few verses onwards, right? In verse 21, Paul says, tell me, you who want to be under the law, do you not listen to the law? I'm going to stop right there. But Paul is saying here, right, that maybe I've labored for you in vain. And why? Why is he saying this? It's because he had spent so much time to teach the Galatians. You understand that they are no longer under the law. They can't be justified from it. Law is not applicable to them. As a matter of fact, you know, in Galatians, in Acts chapter 15, we saw where Paul was given the instruction that no other burden than this was to be laid on the Gentiles. That the only burden, they should be sexually pure, abstain from blood and things strangled, and abstain from food offered to idols. You understand? Paul has spent his time to show them that the only burden on them are those things, and yet still they are trying to take on more burden on themselves. You understand? Thinking that by doing these things, keeping the law and so forth, they are going to get some form of merit or something. So Paul is saying, I felt that my hard work for you was for nothing. You understand? This is why he gives the illustration of a child, you know. You're no longer a slave. You understand? You're now a heir of God. You were under guardians and managers. You understand? That is what it is saying here, you know. As long as you're a child, you're under guardian and managers. Right? As long as you're a child, you're under guardians and managers. That is verse 2. And it tells you that we were enslaved to the elementary principles of the world. But when the fullness of time come, God sent his son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem us who were under the law, so that we might receive the adoptions of sons. So, know that we are sons. We are no longer, you understand? Since we have been adopted, we are no longer under guardians and managers anymore. We are no longer under the law. So this is what Paul is trying to stress to them. You understand? This is what he has been trying to stress to them. Now, they're observing days, they're observing months, they're observing seasons, and they're observing years. These are all ritual celebrations, you know. You understand? The observation of months, the observation of seasons, the observation of years. You understand? Such as yearly celebrations and the observation of days. So, that would include all days, all rituals and so forth that are founded on a day. If this is the case, you know, the Sabbath should be included right there, you know. We can safely say that Paul is alluding to the Sabbath as well. You understand? For he did say they were observing days. You understand? And Paul found that as something of not a necessity. That's why he said that he didn't feel that he labored for them in vain, you know. Because the observation of days is not important. We don't need to observe days anymore. You understand? If you want to, it's fine. You understand? It's fine if you want to, but you're not obligated to observe no day. This is what Paul is saying right here, you know, to the Galatians, you know. Now, what we want to find out is if the Sabbath day is also included in the observation of days. Well, why not? If it's an observation of a day, if the Sabbath day includes observing a particular day, the seventh day, why would you not say that this is included here when it is in fact a day? The Sabbath is a day and it includes the observation of a day. So why would it not be included in Galatians 4, spoken of here? That is a key question that we want to think about. Now, as I've said before, I'm not going to go in depth in it as to why they don't accept and believe that is the Sabbath day mentioned, the weekly Sabbath mentioned in these things. I'm going to do individual videos on them. But these are the three strongest anti-Sabbatarian arguments. You understand? Where the Sabbath is concerned. The three New Testament arguments. Colossians 2, Romans 14, and Galatians chapter 4. The CRG. You understand? Stay tuned for it. In Galatians and Romans, Paul implicitly alludes to the Sabbath, but in Colossians, he explicitly mentions Sabbath. Now, in my videos, which will take 3 separate videos, I will show you how and why it is a Sabbath day mentioned of in each of these texts. Now, with that being said, please look forward for it next week at this time. Bye-bye now.